teens.
Yeah, that's right.
Slowly sliding down.
That's right. Ladies and germs, boys and girls, dogs and cats, children, babies, and other non-specific animal types. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to the Driveline Academy podcast. I'm your Marvel Mouth host, Deven Morgan, Director of Baseball Driveline, founder of the Driveline Academy, and I'm joined, as per usual, by my brother, my partner, my co-host, Driveline Academy Assistant Director, Driveline Academy International Man of Mystery, most eligible bachelor in the state of Washington, Jeremy Tecktiel. We got a bunch of stuff today. Thanks to you guys that have indulged us from last week's episode of just like blowing off some steam and talking about stuff that really didn't have a ton of baseball, but like we're baseball guys, so there's some baseball intersection, obviously, in basically every facet of our lives. Housekeeping, as per usual, we'll start off with the usual suspects. Axbat.com. Code DL20 will get you 20% off at Axe. D is in, I don't know, Damon. L as in, I don't know.
Could have gone Damian Lillard.
Dame Lillard 2-0. Yeah, Dame Lillard 2-0. Well, I mean, as a lifelong Sonics fan, it is very hard for me to root for the Blazers, but like if there's a Blazer that I'm going to root for, it's probably Dame Lillard. Or the second coming of Sean Kemp's career. That was really, really sad. So yeah, DL20 will get you 20% off at axbat.com. Typical disclaimer, in the holiday season, it's possible they might be running discounts that might be conflicting with our 20% off coupon code. If that's the case, then like you're probably getting a better discount without the coupon code, but you should for sure use the coupon code. I was actually talking to somebody the other day who said he works with a league, and he used the coupon code and bought like 20 different T-ball bats for the T-ball division. So shout out to that guy.
Let's go.
We appreciate that. And if you're similarly inclined, DL20, Dame Lillard 20 will get you 20% off at axbat.com. And then the other stuff. But like I wanted to put the other stuff into context because the other stuff is the stuff that we made and invented and have created in the last like 13 months. And you guys have bought it in like fairly staggering numbers, which is, I wanted to put some context to that. So the Skills to Scale book, the Complete Youth Baseball Training Manual, which is right above Jeremy's head there, it's 343 pages of the goods in addition to a ton of online resources as well. We have sold 989 copies. So we are right on the shade of 1,000.
Close. It's there before New Year's, for sure.
Yeah, we'll get there before New Year's. So shout out to you guys. And again, like we talked about this before, like when I start thinking about the math of selling 1,000 copies of a book that is probably in some percentage applied to coaches that are running full teams, makes me feel really good that like we're actually doing a thing and you guys are receiving it and it works for you. So that's great. The Youth Underload Smash Bat, 1,199 bats since like March, April-ish.
Yeah.
Which is awesome.
Yeah.
The Power Bat.
Hopefully all bought using the code.
Yeah. Well, actually, we don't discount those because those are on the Driveline site. And
right.
I don't know if you guys have heard about this whole tariff situation. The bats aren't manufactured in the United States. I'm definitely not trying to fearmonger here, but I will say that like
you should get your bat now.
You might want to get a bat now because it's possible the prices on those things are just going to have to go up if it works out the way that we think it's going to work out. But yeah, over almost 1,200 of the Youth Underload Smashies, around 900 of the Power Bats. And if you knew how many bats we sold in 2023, you would understand like how staggering of a jump that is. So man, just thank you to you guys that have picked it up. If you haven't yet, if you just so happen to be a person who listens to this pod and you haven't bought either one of those bats, the Quick Pitch, the Youth Underload Smash Bat is a skinny barrel and it's really light. You have to practice the discrete skill of moving the bat fast accurately, aka how to hit good. You mix that thing with something like the mini hitting plyos or the Smash Factor balls, both of which can also be seen above Jeremy's head. And now you just have a hitting environment for your youth player that is focused on discrete skill without doing anything else. It's just like the easiest addition to a training environment to actually make it really beneficial. Power Bat, same kind of story. If you've seen youth bat speed training tools out there, a wood one rhymes with Flamhood. Look, man, that thing is just...
It rhymes with wood.
Yeah, well, sure. we wanted to do a single bat overload training system bat because it just makes the whole thing simpler, and we didn't want it to suffer the flaws of some of these other bats on the market that are just too flippin' heavy. We did some initial R&D research on those bats, saw that they just had like a staggeringly positive attack angle, which makes sense when you think about a young kid swinging a bat that's too heavy. They go to swing, they dump it, and then just have to like dig out of the hole from there. And now you're like developing the thing that our good friends John Smoltz and other national broadcasters that crap on the game really hate, the launch angle swing. Every batted ball has launch angle. You guys know that I'm like contractually obligated to say that. So we did the other thing. We leveraged, the data we have in our database on all these other youth game bats, and instead of doing like an arbitrary increase in weight, we based the weight increase based on the actual swing weight, otherwise known as moment of inertia, and it's just good. Like, you got it in a 30 and a 32-inch version. I promise I'm working on the 28 because you guys expressed some interest. I know that it's a thing that you want. We're going to be able to set up a pre-order for it relatively soon. Being able to get it out in like late spring is probably still a possibility. So I got to follow up with our manufacturer and get that dialed. But in total, having 2,000 of our bats out there in a year, in less than a year, is pretty awesome. Shout out to you guys for digging into it. Greatly appreciated. Greatly appreciated. And hey man, if you have one and you like it, tell a friend to tell a friend, because we got more stuff on the way, and that would be appreciated. So I have a quick programming note. I was previously described myself as the Sudafed Kid, aka the Flonase Champ, because I've been sick basically since I came back from the youth summit.
Yeah,
I hopefully feel less sick today, and I'm going to tell you why. Now, caveat: not a doctor, not a licensed medical professional, so treat any medical advice I might be giving you as entertainment. Now, that said, do you know what the active ingredient in Sudafed is?
I don't, but I do know that you can't buy too much Sudafed.
Well, you can't actually buy any. The Sudafed that they sell in the store, Sudafed PE, okay, which I had taken for like a month. The effective ingredient is phenylephrine, okay? The active ingredient in regular Sudafed, or some versions of Mucinex, is another thing called pseudoephedrine. So completely different active ingredients.
Okay.
Here's the best part. Let's see. In 2024, let's see.
It's meth, isn't it?
I don't know if it's the same thing.
Isn't that why you can't? Wasn't that on Breaking Bad? Isn't that why I know that? There was like a Breaking Bad where they had to go to different convenience stores to buy.
I remember that. Yeah. So anyway, so Sudafed PE, the stuff you can get behind the counter, yeah, right? Again, the active ingredient, phenylephrine. Yeah, phenylephrine. FDA press release, November 7th, 2024. Now remember, I got sick, I guess, what was it? The middle of November is when I came back. Today, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration announced it is proposing to remove oral phenylephrine as an active ingredient that can be used in over-the-counter monographed drug products for the temporary relief of nasal congestion after an agency reviews the available data determined that oral phenylephrine is not effective for this use. Sum total.
Are you the agency?
I am. I should have been the agency. I don't know why I wasn't. Why I wasn't consulted. I don't know.
You may have been, and you just had no idea. Maybe you were part of a trial.
Yeah, because my dumbass is just buying this stuff for more than a month, and it turns out it's no more effective than a sugar pill. I email my doc, and I'm like, "Hey, doc, man, like, what am I doing wrong?"
Oh, did they recommend it?
No.
Oh, you emailed him, and he said, "Hey, maybe don't take that thing."
He said you need. I said, "Look, I need the good stuff." Mm-hmm. So I got, it's like some Mucinex D whatever. So
it's just not that.
It's not that, and it's not phenylephrine. And like within a day, I started feeling better, and like I can breathe. I don't know if you're similarly beleaguered with this long-lasting, cold sinus infection, etc. But like, if you're trying that Sudafed PE stuff and it's not working for you, there's a reason.
My move is to drink so much, like liquid IV / Pedialyte,
sure,
with like immune support or whatever, that it just like completely flushes my system.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
but good to note. I won't go and take Sudafed PE if it's still even on shelves.
It is, and that's I'm so angry, so angry, because like I went into my local grocery store and I'm like looking around. I'm like, all right, I can't keep doing what I'm doing, and I asked ChatGPT to try to describe me what's wrong, and of course it's like, that stuff has been proven to kind of be not effective. I'm like, wait, what? Yeah. Nobody told me. But you go on the stores. It's all Sudafed PE or Sudafed PE variants. Variants of something that is, again, no more effective than a sugar pill. So angry. So angry.
How does something like that, and now we're going to get way off track for a baseball podcast, but like, how does something like that hit the market in the first place? Like, there's got to be some sort of research that was done initially saying it was effective.
I mean, if it's the Food and Drug Administration, isn't that their jobs?
Yeah, but there's lots of stories where it might have been... It may have been shown that they're not great at it in all circumstances.
Yeah. I don't know. I have so many questions. I have so many questions about why it's still on shelves. Yeah. Right? I'm certainly not the only dummy who's going in there, and I go to the health and what?
Who owns Sudafed?
That's good. Fine. Good question. Sudafed is owned by Johnson & Johnson. Those bastards.
Definitely have a strong lobby.
Yeah. I'm just so angry about this whole thing that I'm going to use my bully pulpit to talk trash about Sudafed PE. Okay.
So if anything happens to you, in the next couple weeks,
the Johnson Army comes after me. If I like mysteriously end up with a heart attack.
Yeah.
Honey, that's just a joke.
If you mysteriously end up with nasal congestion. It's not a mystery. You just have been taking their medication.
Yeah, they got me. All right, so I promise more baseball-related content. Yeah, this is the sole deviation. Yeah. So I think we can talk briefly about the MLB injury report. We're going to do a whole episode about it before ABCA. Yeah. When we both have a time to really I've read through it once. I think you've got a little bit into it. We both need to dig into the whole thing. Yeah. And
I got to go through it with a highlighter.
Yeah. And I think the first thing I'll say is look, John D'Angelo and the other guys at MLB talked to us, talked to me in the report.
Don't out yourself as who you were.
Here, let's play a game.
Can you guess which person?
Let's play a game. I'm sure at some point the report is going to get out to the public. I don't think it's going to remain internal the way that it's kind of configured forever. And if you get a chance to read it, there are some youth baseball coaches quoted in said report, and you can just play the game and try to figure out which one of those quotes might be attributed to me.
That's a fun game.
And if you're a longtime listener of this pod, I definitely hit one of my one-liners in there. So yeah. Unfortunately, and again, look, I think John and the folks at MLB, kudos to them for even digging into this issue. I mean, certainly they have some top-level pressure to try to understand this when you have high-level pitchers that are real good who get hurt early in the year, and this is kind of there's this long-standing trend of guys get hurt early in the season, and then there's the gradual reduction of arm injuries from that point, and it raises a lot of questions, not only about how are major league pitchers getting trained, how are minor league pitchers getting trained, because the rate of UCL injuries in the minor leagues is insane. It's even worse than it is at the big league level. And then obviously the stuff that's more applicable to us is what's going on with the amateur market below. And I think that largely they got it mostly right. In terms of identifying some of the risk cases, specifically just in the amateur market. I'll just restrict my comments to that side because that's the thing I know most intimately. I don't think anybody wants to hear my hot takes about whether MLB pitchers are actually getting prepped the right way or the wrong way relative to the volume of spring training throwing and the workload in the season, whether AAA guys are getting built up for the workload they're going to have in the majors, et cetera, et cetera. I think the problem in the aftermath of the report getting put out to a lot of reporters and people of note is most of the response to be just well, pitchers should just be worse, right? Well, if we understand that velocity is the greatest contributor to stress on the arm, and stress on the arm without control is going to give rise to injury, will just be worse. And it's like, that's not the game. That's just not how the game works. No one has incentive to be able to do that, and I don't think you can create the incentive to even do that.
No, and I was thinking about it relative to another, a different sport and a different type of injury, but a thing that has, over the last 20 years, been in the media a lot, which is concussions in football.
Yes.
And, you know, you can't make a player run less fast. Right? Like, that hasn't happened in football. The number of concussions have gone down.
Yeah.
But it's not because they're asking players to not run as fast.
Yes.
There are still concussions that happen every week in the NFL. And I think they're just doing a much better job of, like, monitoring it.
Yeah.
And making sure that it is known to be an issue that they are working on and monitoring. And I think the biggest thing for me, and don't work in the NFL, nor do I clearly play in the NFL, but I think the biggest thing for me around it was like the player education.
Yeah.
And the differing of how players themselves viewed getting concussed, as opposed to, when I was growing up, which, like, the famous Madden, you'd get a concussion, you'd be out like a quarter or whatever it was.
They used to sell highlight tapes.
Right. And that's what it used to be when I was a kid. And then, like, at some point, and a lot of it was due to the concussion research directly done, players now much better understand the risks of concussions and what it is. And, just like the Tua stuff where every time he gets concussed and there's all these people talking about whether or not he should stop playing, like, that would never have been a thing when I was growing up. And I think, like, there are things we can draw from that into this issue in terms of just, like, educating the players on understanding the risks and how what they can do to mitigate those risks. And in the NFL, proper form tackling, they have different types of helmets, stuff like that. There's ways to do it, tracking workload, things like that I think are probably the only reasonable thing to be done here. Yeah. It is not reasonable to ask pitchers to throw less hard.
Well, and I saw there's a large commentator who I won't name. We follow each other. Good dude. And his immediate take, I think the morning the report came out, was like, if you have you need to stop having 12-year-olds throw in front of a radar gun. And it's like, man, you need to invert the problem. The problem is not velocity. The problem is inadequate preparation for velocity, right? Like that's largely the issue. If you want to turn like the big levers, are there people?
Getting that at the tool is insane. But, that's
well, and that's the other thing. And I think the one thing that is, look, if I work for Major League Baseball and I consult with people, then you have to present the sum totality of their comments, right? Especially when it comes from people that are in the industry. And we have to confront the fact that there are divergent opinions and divergent levels of understanding about these type of topics. So when people suggest that having kids do something that's tantamount to what we would call a pitch design, is that being potentially responsible for this type of like injury epidemic? It's like, okay, well, number one, you cannot convince me that that's happening at a scale to significantly shift one way or the other. Like, come on.
That's an important point. Yeah.
Like, there's not enough scale.
Correct.
And again, when people talk about weighted balls, it's like weighted balls. And when I say weighted balls, assume that I'm talking about both leather weighted baseballs right now and the plyo care balls that are strewn about our heads. If you understand that there's somewhere between 16 to 20 million kids playing a version of amateur baseball in the United States, understand that we are one of the larger vendors of this type of training product. We are probably the one that has the biggest name. We don't have that type of sales volume to substantiate that type of effect. We just don't. No. Now, that doesn't mean that like plyos that we sold 2 years ago got kicked down to like 11-year-old, Johnny UCL, and he's running he's doing like the old like, I don't know, some program that has like one and guns with a 1 pound ball, right? Like there's some trailing effect here of of just stuff being in the ecosystem. But again, consider the scale. 16 to 20 million kids. What do they all do? They're all playing games, and they're doing so with an inadequate understanding at scale of the effects of throwing workload not controlled over time.
Yes. And I think, understanding the risks is a thing most professional pitchers do. Like
at the pro level, yes.
Right.
They're going to do that math that, like, it is worth it for me to chase velocity because, I mean, look, somebody just got a contract coming off of a Tommy John season.
Oh, it happens all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, like, most drafts include someone in the first round who fell 10, 15, 20 spots because of a Tommy John and still gets taken in the first round and paid, significant money, even though they're not going to see a mound for a year or whatever it is. That understanding is there, and like that risk is worth that reward. Very similar to how most football players now understand concussions, and I'll go back to Tua as an example. Like the man clearly understands the risks and keeps doing it. Like he has done the risk reward analysis, and it is still worth it to him to continue doing this. And I think most professional pitchers are probably somewhere on that spectrum. Or are for sure somewhere on that spectrum, not probably. And I don't think at the youth level, those risks are understood nearly as much.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the education has to come in. And, I don't know. It's interesting when you look at youth football and how they change concussions.
Yeah.
Because, I don't know enough about youth football, so please correct me if I'm wrong. But, I think the main driver of, fixing concussions in youth football was moving to, flag football and 7-on-7s.
Yep. Yeah.
And,
at the really younger ages, yeah.
Right. And, I don't know what the baseball version of that is.
Yeah.
Of how to hey, we can't trust kids not to run headfirst into each other, so we're not gonna let them do that. What do we do? And I say we can't trust kids. We can't trust the adults to yell at the kid, hey, run with your
You're right.
To not teach proper tackling technique and want the kid to run through a wall for them or whatever it is. I don't know what that version of baseball looks like.
Yeah, I mean, well, what it is it's what I'm trying to work on with this coalition of stuff going in ABCA about, universal pitch count and getting some stuff tested in 2025 with the idea that if we can get everybody to the table and we could get some leverage, some big name people that have a lot of sway, that we could actually get something like. We've been talking about this for years. We're 3 years deep on this pod. We probably first talked about universal pitch count rules probably a year into it, maybe less than that. There's some stuff going on. I feel very positive about some of the progress that's happening and relative to the people that are now participating in the conversation. But you're right. There isn't anything at scale. And because of that, we suffer that flaw. And the one thing I want to finish the thought and come back to, if I'm Major League Baseball, I have to kind of publish all of the thoughts of the people that comment. And I think there's two things that I will just say briefly, and we can dig into this more when we come back to it next week. There's two things that I think need to be addressed. One of those things is there is a lot of conversation about the dangers of overload, underload training, effectively is what it comes down to, about the dangers of weighted balls or plyo care or whatever. The unfortunate reality is that nowhere in that report does it reference the existing research that substantiates the basic idea that you guys have heard us talk about on this show for literal years, which is as ball weight goes up, stress on the arm goes down. Slower the arm goes, the less the kinematics are and the kinetics. That's just a thing that happens, and physics apply to movement irrelevant of the age of the person that's doing the move. Physics don't just go well, you're 11, so you're going to express, the stress and strain that you exhibit when executing this movement is going to be fundamentally different than it is when you're 21, right? We are talking about the way that our physical world moves and works with our bodies. These things don't change. So if you are one of those people who's if I look at the Fleissig-Andrews research on weighted balls, or I look at the paper that Driveline published on the same thing, shout out to first author Michael O'Connell. If you're one of those people who's the sample size doesn't go down below high school, so it's inapplicable, because the physics don't care about the age of the athlete. right? That's just not the way that stuff works. So if we can apply a little bit of logic and science, you can answer that question for yourself. Now, I know that's not good enough, and we've talked, you and I have talked about how we can, even with a small sample size, run the same study or something similar to it, and we'll show you what we come up with. I think that's something we're going to try to get off the ground in 2025. But I did want to talk about the weighted ball thing briefly, and the other thing I want to talk about is this whole motor preference idea. Have you gone down this rabbit hole?
No. I've looked at the rabbit hole, kind of cocked my head a little bit, thought about it, and then it's like, no, I'm not going to.
Yeah, did your spidey sense go off about, like, this seems a little bit illogical?
It seems like it's going to spend a significant amount of time and not be better for it.
Yeah. So, look, this idea of motor preferences is something that I'm willing to be proven wrong about, because I'm willing to be proven wrong about anything. However, when like the car alarm in my brain, like, does this make logical sense, starts going off, when you start telling me that, like, well, we're just going to be able to determine that on a per athlete basis there is a natural set of movements, which suggests that any movement that deviates from that path is unnatural and therefore potentially injurious.
Right.
I don't buy it. I just don't buy it. You can't tell me that like both these things are true at the same time. Human beings are the most incredible adaptation machine in the known universe, and also that, like, there's one set of movements that we just need to, like, hold to. That doesn't make sense. How do you even identify what that is?
Well, and we've been watching athletes do things different ways in all sports for a very long time.
Yep. Yeah. And largely predicated on adaptation.
Right.
Right? Speed is going to force an adaptation, right? Speed of movement. Movement with load, external amounts of load, is going to force an adaptation. That's wrong. Like, that's bad? How does that work?
Yeah.
Like, how does that possibly work? I just don't buy it. I'm sorry. I just don't buy it that that's really a thing. I'm more than willing to be proven wrong. So if you, like, and the bummer about this is that, like, I was talking to somebody on Twitter who's a strength guy in the Rockies org about this, and the only person I got that kind of, like, kicked back with some contrary thoughts was someone who is very clearly, like, selling some stuff. And it's like, all right, bro. I mean, I don't buy it. I really don't buy it. And the idea that, like, well, part of this read of the reason of injury that we have either at the professional level or at the amateur level is because kids are being pushed to train in a way that is outside of their natural movement preferences. Like, there's on no planet can you convince me that even if that was a thing, that the effect is more substantial than a global population of 16 to 20 million people that don't understand workload. What's the biggest lever?
And the natural preference, like, everyone is taught how to do it.
Yeah.
So natural is just what you were taught. That's not natural.
What's natural about throwing a 5-ounce baseball?
Right.
Like, how is that? So 6 ounces is an unnatural ask? Based on what? 4 ounces an unnatural ask? Based on what?
Yeah.
I'm still waiting to see some logic there. You show me some logic and I'll read into it. And beyond that, I'm
well,
sorry.
and that's the thing, is that it's not, it doesn't appear to be provable.
Right. And imagine in the youth player population, or even just the amateur player population, where these kids are going through varying rates of growth.
Yeah.
What's natural now versus what's natural in 6 weeks, right, or 8 weeks or 12 weeks?
Right.
How do you retest for that? Like, what does that look like?
I mean, how do you test for that in the first place? You take a bunch of pitchers who didn't ever get hurt and try to look at their mechanics. Like, I don't really understand.
Yeah.
How you find what the natural mechanics are in the first place.
I don't. I truly don't understand. So I will just say that, like, I think that's bogus. I think that's completely bogus. Want to talk about the ruling? Diego Pavia, I think is the kid's name. Have you heard about this?
Quarterback.
Yeah. Because the word on the street is that there's a possibility that like JUCO years wouldn't count against your NCAA years of eligibility. Look, you can read into this thing all you want. I don't think we need to go all the way into it, but because we spend so much time talking about recruitment, talking about the path to go from high school to college play, the thing you need to understand now is that like this isn't a done deal. It's going to be arbitrated further. I'm sure that this is going to get sent to a higher court. Nothing is final right now. So if you are thinking about making your commitment to a JUCO in the coming year, and you think that like that's not going to come at some amount of eligibility that you would forfeit at the NCAA level, nothing's been decided yet. Like it's just not. So understand that while this is a thing that is playing out right now, it's not final in any way, shape, or form, and you should make decisions for either you or your player in consideration of that fact. Is it going to go that way? Maybe. Like we don't know, but nothing's been finalized at this point.
Yeah.
So just be smart there. What else do we have in the potpourri here? You know what I wanted to talk about is when you and I were talking to Nate. So we got a kid in the academy. Nate. Is he 12?
He's 14.
No, he's
13, 14.
Yeah, 13, 14. Yeah. He's been with us for I guess year and a half.
Is this
the start of year 2?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was in on, was that on Thursday?
Well, not start of year 2. We're halfway through his
Yeah. It was in on Thursday.
Thursday night, yeah.
Yeah, I had a meeting with some folks, and I was watching their hitting, and at the end of it, you and I were just standing there chopping it up, and he comes over and he's like, "Hey, how can I improve my hitting?" And I was like, "Okay, well, like what?" And I think the first thing that one of us said was like, "What do you think you want to work on?"
That's what you said, yeah.
Yeah. And look, I think it's a great question when you have a kid that age that really wants, they're curious that way, right? Like what should I continue to work on? I mean, if we were running like a DECA competition and some kid like does a DECA math test and he's like, what can I get better at? Like, yeah, please, for the love of God. I love that question.
Yeah.
So he asked, and then we kind of threw back, like, well, what do you think you want to work on? And he said, like, approach right off the bat, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Anyways, point being that we ended up getting a conversation about batted ball targets. And I think that's something that maybe we don't talk about it enough, because I think we just kind of take it for granted that people understand how to kind of coach through this lens. But again, using this platform, I thought that was something to be really valuable for us to kind of lean into.
Interesting. You and I took that conversation slightly different ways.
How so?
That, and there was another conversation the night before, I'm pretty sure. It's the night before or the night after, with Quincy, one of our interns who just left us to go back to school. I'll miss you, Quincy.
How dare you, Quincy?
How dare you? This is a good question. I think there was something telling in that interaction, because that's a kid that's been in our gym for a year and a half.
Yeah.
And there were some things early on, and he was not in our gym a ton last winter.
Little challenge. Yeah, some social challenge.
Right. So we didn't have him a ton last winter. So this is really like the first like development period that he's like fully gone through.
Yeah.
He's here a couple hours a week hitting. He hears, because I was in the cages all night.
Yeah.
I heard coaches giving him instruction.
Yeah.
Telling him what to work on, things like that. So that question comes with another question for me is, okay, why do you have that question?
Sure.
Like, you should know the answer to that question. You're in here, you should know what you're working on, what things you're trying to improve. Why do you, and there are multiple kids like this, but how can I improve? How can I do this? A lot of kids every practice will ask that question. And I think it's a telling question of, are we not hearing what the coach is telling us? Mm-hmm. And like that can go in multiple different directions. Or it's like, okay, does the coach need to find a better way to tell you this?
Sure.
Or do you just not have a great relationship with that coach and you'd rather come and ask a different coach who isn't with you as often? Are you just looking for a second opinion? You're one of those people. Like, there's a lot of different ways that can go. But we had a thing the night before as well, or again, the night after, I can't remember which, where an athlete said they didn't hear the coach. And it was like, he was right behind you. And he definitely said like a lot during that round. So, and you don't have a hearing problem, as far as I know. So, the next question has to be asked is like, okay, why were you tuning that out?
Sure.
Right? Like it's okay, maybe don't try to talk to him during the round next time. Like if you know that he tuned you out and he didn't hear,
yeah,
and then you get frustrated after the round because we didn't make any adjustments and he was like, oh, I didn't even hear what you were saying. It's like, did you hear it and not listen? Did you?
Yeah.
So I think that was telling to me because it's like, okay, what do we have to do to better get through to these athletes? That one specifically, who's been here for a while and comes up and asks two people who, one, I mean, you don't interact with him much.
No, I mean, when I see him, I always say what's up, just because of like the first the first interaction that we had was, I'm always going to be in that kid's corner.
Well, but like once a month, maybe.
Yeah, probably.
And like comes right up to you and asks, and like he sees me more frequently, but like, are you not getting what you need from your coach?
Sure.
Like, do we need to do more work there? Because like you should know the answer to that question.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're right. I personally attributed it to just like kids having the attention span of a gnat. Like that to me is just like, and part of that has to do with the fact that it's a lived experience with my own flipping kids who have the similar attention span. So it's like, okay, cool.
Again, right back to like pretty telling.
Yeah.
Like if we're trying, like if his coach is trying to get him improved at something, which is the case, he needs to be saying that over and over again because kids' attention spans are short, and several children, not just this one specifically, but like are clearly not remembering, or it's not sticking, it's not sinking in as much. So like we got to find a different way or ask different questions.
Yeah.
And like it was back-to-back days that it was just like, why are you asking that question? How do you not know the answer to that question?
Yeah.
Like, how do we need to do a better job of, like, making sure you know? Because, like, at some level to me, it's kind of a waste to spend an hour in the cages and at the end be like, what should I be working on?
Yeah.
Like, what were you just working on?
Yeah, I mean,
like,
maybe
did you not have a focus? And that goes back to, like, the ball flight intention and, like, ball targets. But, like, what is your focus? And I think even us as coaches here don't do a good enough job of that with all of our athletes.
Yeah.
We definitely have a subset of athletes that like understand that the way we told it to them. And I think the older they get, the easier it is. But I think there's like a lot of athletes that are in some cases slipping through the cracks because they're not quite getting what is being asked of them. And that's in this setting. So I'm sure that exists everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, maybe that's the first takeaway then. It's just that like when you're working with a kid that age, a pre-high school kid, there are things that we might find to be kind of implicit in the environment, either implicit in this environment or implicit when you get on the field, that like maybe the first takeaway is don't make that presumption that these things really are implicit for the kids and that it is going to require a constant amount of refrain.
I mean, basically what we told this kid was have a focus when you hit.
Yeah.
Right? Like when you're in the cages or when you're on the field, have more of an intention.
Yeah.
That's what you need to work on. And like I would make the argument that is what most athletes need to work on.
Yeah, and that was what we ended up telling him. It's just like, as we started getting a conversation about, well, what's your ball flight target? Where are you trying to hit the ball? And my sense, and maybe this is wrong, but like my sense is that when he asked that initial question that he was looking for us to like dome him up about some type of mechanical thing. And what we instead said was like, what's the ball flight target? And the reason that I then went into like that whole, rant about, maybe not a rant, an explanation about the reason for him to be consistently having that and how that would define the mechanics is that like I was trying to, my spidey sense came and was like, this guy wants us to tell us something that like the way that he would be coached somewhere else about mechanics. So instead of giving him that, I'm going to double down on ball flight and let him know that that's going to drive the mechanical change that he actually might need to make.
For sure. And I think like it's telling that he was by himself. Mm-hmm. There weren't any other athletes there.
Yeah.
And I think it was, I don't think you're wrong that he was looking for some sort of like mechanical.
Yeah.
I mean, salad is probably not the right term, but that's the term we use here. It's just like some kind of mechanical salad. And, that in my head, it's like, okay, has he heard a bunch of mechanical salad and is trying to figure out is trying to get someone to tell it to him in a way that makes sense to him?
Sure.
Like, has he heard 3 different cues from 3 different coaches and none of them have stuck? So he's just continuously searching for like, what is the cue that's going to like make this make sense to me? Which is like possible. I don't know the answer to that, but that's entirely possible. But I like overall, I think I am myself in danger of this often, focus way too much on higher level stuff when often, especially with kids, they just like will forget what their intention and their goal is when they're in the cage.
And then it devolves down to, I just want to get a hit.
And then
right?
like it is hard to, and like what I told the kid last week was like your body and your brain is like a really, really good computer and problem solver, and you're not giving it the information it needs to solve the problem.
Yep.
Because you don't have an intention in your head. So like the command you're typing into the computer is hit ball.
Yeah.
And that's way too broad for your body.
Yeah.
The more specific you get, the easier time your body is going to have of translating that into a movement pattern that helps you accomplish that task. Yeah. And I feel like and that was probably way too high level of an explanation for this kid. I mean, it was a high school kid. It wasn't like a little kid, but he did like kind of understand that, like I hit worse when I forget what my goal is.
Yeah.
When I go into the cage and on every swing in that round, I remember what I'm supposed to be doing and what my intention is. At the end of the round, my swings just look a lot better. And you could literally watch a kid get frustrated and lose focus.
Yeah.
And like, it's not that hard to redirect them back to the focus. But I find myself, and I see other coaches all the time, trying to redirect them back towards hinge, coiled, not necessarily internal cues, even like ball flight goals, as opposed to just like directing them back. And I guess the ball flight goal could be your intention in that cage, but like, hey man, there's a runner on second. What are we trying to do here?
Yeah.
Right? Like I'm going to try to make this as simple as possible for you. There's a runner on second. What are we trying to do here?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm trying to do that. Great. Now go swing and see what it looks like.
Yeah. And then the next layer down is going to be what's the environment. You know, like in like that night in the office cage, the near cage, it was fastballs are kind of like middle in, and I watched a couple of those kids start like cheating away, like they're cheating away from their normal position on the plate or
moving further back
in the box
to
try to make it easier so they can get a barrel. And when Nate came out for one of those rounds, and he did it in a very obvious fashion, and it was so extreme that like if that pitch had been middle. Just middle. He's probably end capping at best, and so before he actually came up to it since the end, I was like, "Hey Nate, what do you think this situation looks like in a game?" And he was like, "What do you mean?" I was like, "Well, you just had a round of 8 pitches, and all of those were like middle in, right? What if you see a pitcher that's like middling? He's just burying everything to you. It's like middle in. What are you going to do? Are you going to walk away from the plate? Are you going to give up like 6 inches a barrel?" And he was like, I don't know. I was like, well, look, here's the deal, Nate. I think that you're moving away from the plate because you want to try to get a barrel and put a green number up on the hit tracks because you think that that's success in this environment relative to the things we communicate. And I understand that. But if this is in a game, and let's say you end up in like an 8-pitch battle with a guy and you're just fouling everything off, that dude's going to make a mistake. And he's going to leave something over the middle of the plate. Do you want to be in position to be able to catch a barrel then? Yes. Okay, good. Then we can't move. We can't literally move like 9 inches away from the plate in this environment. Like literally staying alive on these pitches, even if you're not putting green numbers up on hit tracks, that's still a good thing. Like I'll accept that as an outcome in training. Now, do I want you to get better at like the inside move and attacking that pitch and like get to the spot before it gets you and catch a barrel? Yes, absolutely. But the thing you can't practice is giving up that real estate. Like, cannot.
Sure. I think that's much more of a function of you saw 1 round?
I saw 2 rounds from Nate.
Okay.
And then
my pitch was a little wild then, right?
Yeah.
So I think it was more of a. I don't think he was backing up to try to get a green on hit tracks, right? I think it was more of a I'm getting blown up by velocity here, and like I'm not thinking about the green on hit tracks. I'm thinking about the safety of my thumbs, the well-being of my digits.
Yeah, I mean it wasn't that bad. They were hittable. It was just when he slid away, it was such a very obvious like. I know that this pitch is going to be like middle in, and I'm going to put myself in a position where instead of making the swing adaptation to kind of like stay a little bit inside the ball, which is some hitting coach salad, like I'm aware.
Yeah, I understand that, but there's not really a like I would rather if the goal of that cage is to put up PRs. I don't want him moving off the plate to put himself in a better position, but like that is good information to have that you cannot, like this kid needs to work on turning on an inside pitch because he cannot get to and get a barrel to a middle in fastball off a cage. Okay, we need to do more work with him on that as opposed to changing the intention of the cage maybe. Like if it was a 2-strike cage, sure, like let's just fight off that middle in pitch.
Yeah.
But like I don't want him fighting off the pitch if like the intention of the cage is like, it's a bat speed day, I want you PRing. Well, then I don't want him just like trying to fight off the pitch necessarily.
For sure. I was just trying to give him some context to understand that like, if that is the intention, right, is you're going to get buried middle in and you're trying to find barrels and it's going to be a challenge that like, there's like iterative steps towards getting to that point. And one of those steps may be that you have to foul off 8 pitches, right? And then the next round, because we're starting to accumulate in this block training of like this very specific environment, that like you do get a chance to like turn swing and misses into foul balls, into maybe 1 barrel, into 3, into 5. You know?
Sure. Did you say that to him?
We did talk about that, yeah.
Okay, because I was going to say abstract thinking, which we know kids are not good at. Like then he just changes his intention to all right. I just got to fight. I don't even have to get a barrel. Right now, my goal is just fighting off middle in, and like that's not what we want. Yeah. Right. So and I think like we can get caught in that too.
Yeah.
Where our goal gets misunderstood by them. Mm-hmm. But I think like way too often we spend time trying to redirect mechanical focus, coil, hinge, rotate, things like that, when like the real problem is that they're 3 swings in and they didn't get a result they wanted, and they've now removed like the goal of that cage is gone now.
Yeah, the frustration level goes up, intention disappears, and now it's just like this very non-intentional thought, I just got to get a hit.
Right.
I don't want to be embarrassed. I don't want to swing and miss in front of my friends.
I think if you could get like a 100% accurate readout of kids' thoughts, the actual goal in their head would change every single swing. And like that is our job as coaches to redirect them back to that original goal.
Yeah.
Because that unless it was a bad goal in the first place, which I guess is our job to fix.
Yeah.
Like if that was their goal in the first place, like why'd you get away from it after one swing and miss? Or one foul ball or one result that you didn't like, now I've completely changed this goal, and then 3 pitches later it's like a game of telephone where like I can't even remember what my original goal was.
Yeah.
I'm so far away from that because, man, I just want to hit a barrel. I just want to hit a line drive to somewhere, right? Yeah. And it's like, well, you've lost the specific intention.
Yeah.
And now you're getting 6 swings in, you're way more broad, and you're just not able to solve that broad of a problem.
Yeah.
And I just need to redirecting it back down to the specifics. I was going to say specificity. But like keep inserting specificity into it in the round instead of hinge, coil, rotate, hold space, all these things. I think in a lot of ways, it was a thought I had at the end of last week, is that like I think there are a lot of athletes that we have to be way more intentional about redirecting them back to the goal, because we've said, and like I watch it all the time, but like, okay, where was the miss on that one? And they guess.
Sure.
Right? Or like, what didn't you do well enough on that swing? Hinge? Coil? Like, I know those are the 2 words you guys say the most. So like one of those is probably the one I didn't do.
Yeah.
And like them learning, I think it's probably easier to teach kids at scale goals and how to change their goal and redirect their goal in certain settings, as opposed to teaching them the proprioceptive ability to feel a hinge or a coil or how to hold that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, is that even a thing that you can do? Can I talk a kid into knowing how to hinge? Like, I mean, everything I understand about movement adaptation.
I mean, you can but can you talk every kid? No. Right. Like like this isn't one size fits all, or it shouldn't be. Like you can talk a kid into feeling a hinge, right? Like we've done it.
Yeah.
I got 20 plus athletes. They all have varying levels of proprioceptiveness. I think I created that word. I don't know if proprioceptiveness is a word.
Proprioceptive capacity.
Okay, I like proprioceptiveness, but every kid has like varying abilities and levels of that. There are kids who literally can throw a pitch and turn around and tell me exactly what they did wrong, and there are kids who take the worst swing in the world and have no idea why or what they did wrong. I have a kid, I don't know if you've seen this, but like he now has like this weird tick in his leg when he swings, and he like does this with his back leg when he swings, and he has no idea that he's doing it. And it's like and I took a video and showed him, but like there's varying levels of proprioceptiveness. And you can definitely teach some kids how to hinge and coil and how to feel that, and other kids are just going to learn better if they're not thinking about that, and whatever goal you give them forces their body to do that thing.
Yeah.
And if you see a hinge after you give them a goal, just keep giving them the goal instead of telling them hinge. See, you hinged. Do that again. Or no. See, when you try to hit the ball to left field, that's when you get the best results.
Yeah.
So like keep trying to do that, or keep trying to, I don't know, whatever goal we set,
Yeah, and that was what we ended up telling Nate, is just that like, I know that this sounds perhaps simple and reductive, but practicing with that consistent intention is going to get you to the best place. And then effectively what you want is the intention to be mapped to the environment, right? Like if you're seeing, top shelf heaters trying to attack those and hit balls, over the left fielder's head, may be tough because you're talking about probably a swing path that doesn't match the ball flight of the incoming pitch. So you might have to thin out.
So I guess what I'm getting at is
14-year-olds are going to be able to like, they need something that's much more digestible.
I guess what I'm getting at is we should treat athletes, especially youth athletes, similar to how IT professionals treat the people they work with.
Oh, okay.
And just assume they're dumb.
Yeah.
And just like immediately, okay, have you unplugged it? Have you power cycled?
Yeah. Is the mouse connected?
Right? Like just go like basic stuff like, okay, what is your goal?
Yeah.
Before I'm going to try to tell you mechanically what you're doing wrong or how to fix it, like what was the goal that you had in your head on that swing?
Yeah.
Like let's start there. Okay, you did power cycle? Okay, great. Now we can get into like but like if they're not doing that basic thing, what does the rest of the stuff really matter?
Yeah, I mean, and to your point, to extend the analogy, if like the first tool you go to with a 13-year-old is like, all right, let's open the registry editor. Like, bro.
Correct. Yeah.
Time out.
Right.
The problem might lie there, but there's a bunch of other underlying stuff.
Right. Let me check off these boxes. Let me make sure you power cycled.
Yeah.
So I don't waste a bunch of my time and day coming to you to fix a problem that, like, oh, you just restart the computer.
Yeah.
You're fine.
And especially, I think this bears mentioning, especially when we're talking about our hitting environments that 99.5% of the time involve a moving ball. Right? If this was a conversation
I'll take it one step further.
Yeah.
Involve a moving ball from an offset machine at a weird angle with a different implement that isn't your game bat, especially to start
in the skill cages,
in a lot of cases. And like, I would say most of our kids don't know the goal in the drill cage all the time.
Yeah. Quick recap. The way that we kind of run our hitting nowadays is we've got basically drill cages and then competition cages is kind of the best way to think about it. So we're going to come in, hit your dynamic, and then you're going to slide into a hitting group. And the first group, or that first group is going to go start in our drill cages. And in those drill cages, it's going to be some combination of what you were just talking about, where it's either short box distance or it's short box plus offset.
The
variation
Friday
is
we had
endless.
Each machine had 2 cages, and one machine was offset fastballs.
Each cage had 2 machines.
What did I say? Each machine had 2 cages.
Yeah,
that doesn't make sense.
My dyslexia is catching on.
There you go. So there was like a left and a right machine in each cage. One cage was left fastball, righty fastball. The other cage was lefty slider, righty slider, and they were like splitting the rounds. And they were offsets. They were coming at a weird, like they were extreme lefty and righty, right? Like not like just barely offset. The machines weren't right next to each other. There was significant space between. And like, hey, I need you to put this ball back in that machine.
Yeah.
Right? Like that, like giving them a goal as opposed to just like, hey, just make contact with this, which is in a lot of cases what their thought process is. Especially in the drill cage when they're hitting smash balls, they're not hitting baseballs, they're not hitting on their Hitrex account.
Yeah.
When they're hitting on their Hitrex account, then it's like, okay, no matter what, even if I don't say anything, all these kids are going to think the goal is to PR.
Yeah.
Because they want to put up a green number on Hitrex, and like, it's on me or other coaches to tell them if that isn't the goal.
Yeah.
But in the smash ball cages, they're not hitting on their profiles. So way too often, they're just like hitting aimlessly. Yeah. Like there's not a goal. They don't understand in a lot of cases, and then we're just like, you have to hinge more on that one.
Yeah.
It's like, well, let's just make sure that they understand that, like, hey, when you're in this cage and you see a lefty fastball offset and you're a righty and you're swinging with a short pad, I just want you to put it directly back in the machine. Like, that's the goal.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's just, I think the thing that we're kind of landing on here is that the intention is the most leverage and sometimes the least used tool.
I wouldn't even say sometimes.
Yeah,
I think we all the time take it for granted.
Yeah.
And we try to fix other things before just like having a conversation about intention.
Yeah.
And like that, it hit me later in the week and then a little bit yesterday as well that like I've been coaching these kids for a long time and like we still don't always have the intention that we need to in the right situations.
Yeah. And again, some of that just has to do with the fact that the customer, if you will, oftentimes does have the attention span of a gnat.
Right. It's a kid.
Yeah.
And like I'm sure there are coaches out there that have this ability. I don't have the ability to sit and watch every swing every one of my kids takes. So like I am largely dependent on them to kind of help me coach themselves. Mm-hmm. Right? That is what a lot of the technology and the Titan feedback loop is like. They can take a swing, get feedback from the swing, whether it's ball flight, technology, feedback, or both, and then make an adjustment, but if they don't understand the intention, they're not going to get that feedback and they're not going to make that change. So it's kind of putting it right back into the loop where like it's almost like I need to be watching every single one because their intention strays. Yeah,
and I mean, I had a very acute example of that just with Danny. He's been working on some stuff, and one of our coaches that's been on the floor is Dan Comstock, and he and Dan had a brief, but I think like a decently impactful conversation where Comstock was kind of just telling him like, look, if you're gonna fail, if you're gonna struggle, like fail better, fail at trying to execute a specific intention. Because that's the way that you're actually going to get better at that intention, right. Instead of the struggle and the failure loop where it just devolves, right? It just devolves and devolves and decays into something that's just like, I want to stop feeling like I'm struggling. Mm-hmm. But I think the thing they don't realize is that like the actual path to resolve that is committing to failing the right way. It's committing to struggling, trying to execute. Hey, I'm just trying to shoot this ball, middle at a 5 to a 25 launch angle, right? Or, pull side from 10 to 30 or whatever, right? Whatever it can be. I mean, I think you can prescribe the intention relative to the athlete and relative to their age, but the point being that they're going to get better if you reiterate and make sure that they hold tight to whatever that specific intention is.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. As opposed to mechanical cues or anything like that, like giving intention cues, I think is like just massively underrated.
Yeah.
Because most kids, especially in cages, just like lose intention so fast.
Yeah.
And especially as the environment gets more difficult, like the intention just gets broadened within 2 swings.
Yeah.
And like then they're just in the Superdome for the rest of the round and the rest of hitting, and like the quicker we can redirect it back to their original intention, the more we're going to get out of that hitting.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, certainly we have the way that we can leverage technology in here is we could have that goal of a left center 10 to 30 degree launch angle, right? Like we can do that. You can prescribe these things with your kids on a field. Hell, you can prescribe these things if you've got them working, hitting into like a box net. Mm-hmm. Like I've done that before with, when we really didn't have anywhere to swing. Or I'm running Little League practices, right? And I've got a volunteer who is a well-intentioned mom or dad, but isn't someone who's crazy enough to like listen to a podcast like this. With those type of coaches, like helping me run a team practice, it's like, hey, look, man, you can just kind of look at this box net and that hitting kind of the net in the middle, that section of it, draw a line in the middle. Everything batted ball off the tee here just needs to be above that line. Right? Like you can direct that intention regardless of the hitting environment. And if you do that, the more that you make it relative to what they're going to see in competition, the more that you make it relative to the stuff that plays in competition, the better development that you're going to get out of that kid. I mean, like literally having this conversation makes me think I need to do like another version of the book where it's got some sort of like cue matrix where it's like cue or intention mapped to mechanical improvement we're trying to drive. Like if I'm trying to get more, I don't know, more hip to shoulder separation in the swing, I would like cue a kid to try to firm, like clean left fielder pull side liners and do that from, I don't know, like the poppy drill or something like that, right? We're actually going to get that thing up, get it down, and then really try to like find that hip to shoulder separation spot where we get the most. And
see, my argument there would just be, okay, just prescribe the poppy drill and make sure he knows the intention in the poppy drill.
Sure.
The drill is what's going to probably drive that mechanical cue.
Yeah.
He's not going to get the most out of that drill if he doesn't understand of the intention of the drill.
Yes.
So if I'm just telling you to go do a poppy drill and you're driving the ball opposite field on a poppy drill, you may not have understood the intention of this drill. And now like the adaptation we're trying to get with the drill.
Yeah.
Best laid plans ain't happening.
Yeah.
Because now you're not actually doing the drill properly, not getting the most out of that drill.
Yeah, I mean with a 10-year-old, it's like, look, it's find it pull side, right? Like, well, it's just find it pull side.
The 10-year-old is just have fun playing baseball.
Well, how dare you?
I know.
How dare you? I didn't have a ton left in our potpourri. I did want to talk briefly about, you got to say rest in peace to Ricky Henderson, man. I think the thing I will...
The greatest living baseball player for, 6 months?
I mean, shoot.
Okay. He was the greatest living Hall of Famer.
Yeah. I mean, the argument that I've seen, and I haven't looked at, like, the actual stats to defend this, but The argument was you can basically divide Ricky Henderson's career in two, and both of those careers are Hall of Fame level careers. And if that doesn't result in arguably one of the best baseball players of all time, I don't know what it is.
And maybe, and I'm being hyperbolic. Someone please throw examples at me. But like, I don't know if if I can immediately think of a better example of a player who was before his time.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Because his personality nowadays is what
age.
baseball really, really needs.
Yeah.
Like, they need a Ricky Henderson. And, like, at the time, man, he was not treated well because of
it. I mean, I saw, I think somebody posted the other day that, on his first appearance on the Hall of Fame ballot, there were 28 writers that did not vote for him. And, like...
Well, and the other, this is going back to what you said about dividing his career in two.
Yeah.
But the thing he was like, he will probably forever be best known for is stealing bases, right? If you remove that,
yes,
he's still
a Hall of
Famer.
Yeah.
Like, by all accounts, he's still, without stealing a base ever, would still have been a Hall of Famer. It's an incredible, he was incredible.
Yeah.
He was an incredible human and person.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm of an age where it's like you see somebody pass away at 65, and it's like, wait, what? Hold on. We're supposed to have another 15, 20 years here, man. What are we doing?
Yeah,
that sucked. That really sucked. And I was glad to be able to like grow up watching Ricky Henderson play in his prime, man. It's just. I don't know how you don't vote for that guy as a first ballot Hall of Famer. Like, like Griffey had like one person to the
for a very long time, it was standard practice for one media writer at least one to not vote someone in first ballot.
It's so cheesy, dude.
And then,
so just
nobody. I mean,
no, I know.
And then it went away because they made the ballots public. And
yeah.
And then these cowards weren't willing to put their names to that no vote.
Yeah, and you guys start getting aired out. I love it.
Yeah. R.I.P. Ricky Henderson.
Yeah, man, that's just that was a bummer.
I legitimately thought it was a joke when I first saw it. Maybe not a joke is a bad way to say that, but I thought it was fake.
I thought somebody was trolling.
Yeah.
Yeah, Danny was like, Ricky Henderson died. I was like, no way.
Because he was, and it wasn't like the same as like the Kobe thing, but it was like a similar, like, no way. Because he was all over the summer with the last season of Oakland.
Yes, he was.
And I was like, he looked pretty healthy. Like, he didn't look, I saw pneumonia. Yeah. But.
Yeah, hopefully he wasn't taking that Sudafed PE.
Wait, what? Maybe he took it to try to get better, and it's just a sugar pill.
I shouldn't have said that. I shouldn't have tried to connect those dots. I am as mad about Sudafed PE as I am the fact that Ricky Henderson passed away prematurely.
I am more mad about Ricky Henderson.
That's fair.
I didn't get gaslit by Johnson & Johnson.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah, those bastards. I got nothing else. Anything else you want to hit on?
No.
I think next we can do that. We'll dive into the report, full, both barrels, because there's a lot of good stuff there, and we're going to come back to a bunch of the same stuff that we've advocated for, but I think it is interesting to consider some of the other opinions out there that just this stuff isn't universally accepted. If you're a psychopath who's crazy enough to listen to this very niche market show and you've been around for a while, I think it's sometimes we get lost in the fact that like we just live in our own little ecosystem and we all understand each other and we speak the same language and we talk about, manipulating attention and hitting and you guys get that. Meanwhile, there's well-intentioned people out there that are talking to 8-year-olds about their hip shoulder separation.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's a thing that's happening.
Yes.
At the exact same time, in the exact same timeline, in the exact same universe. And it's going to be that way for, forever. I mean, there's always going to be this trailing effect of coaches who are just coaching in the rear view. And
there are, with all of the research and publicly out there available knowledge, there are still people playing tackle football at like 8 years old.
Yeah.
And sending their kids out there. So like, look, you're never. This is not a problem that's going to go away.
Yeah.
It's a problem that, and I'm sure we'll talk about this a ton next week. Is like there are ways to mitigate this, but like at the end of the day, it's a risk reward problem.
Yeah.
And like you can't decide for someone else what where they are on the risk reward graph.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I can, I guess all we can say is it's specific to like the amateur market and youth baseball in particular at like the 14 down level. I'm just convicted that you can optimize for development without mitigating safety. Like I think that that's a thing that you can do.
Yep.
It's not going to come from like giant modifications to the way that baseball is trained nowadays. It's going to come from modifications in the game volume. Like that's the lever.
Yeah.
That's the lever. Okay. Axbat.com, code DL20, Dame Lillard. Shout out to Game Time, Dame Time. Skills to Scale book. You can buy one of the last 11 copies this year, and maybe you'll find a signature from yours truly in there. If we hit 1,000 before the end of the year, that'd be tight.
We will.
Yeah, we will.
Mom, if you're listening, buy a copy.
I'll create a discount code specific for your mom. Yeah, we got the Youth Endless Smash Bats, Power Bats. Man, we're a couple thousand deep. Thank you guys for supporting and picking that up. If you haven't, yeah, they're real good. I think.
What are you waiting for?
Yeah, I mean the.
Let me turn this around on you. What's your intention?
What is your intention? Do you want to get good? And look, man, I don't feel weird about trying to stump for those things because they just work. Yeah. Like it's not gadgets, it's not voodoo. It's a bat that's overloaded appropriately for youth players, and it's a skinny barrel that doesn't weigh a lot, so you can move it fast and you have to move it accurately. These are just good things. That's what good hitting is. You want those things, you can practice them, that discrete skill, and yeah, I'm not saying that like they're definitively going to go up in price next year, but there's a decent chance, so it's maybe something to consider. Yep. Other than that, I guess we'll do one more before the end of the year.
Technically, yes.
Yeah, yes, it'll be.
I don't know if it'll release before the end of the year, but
I can make it happen. We'll be
It'll be on the 31st, maybe.
Yeah, we'll do it on that Tuesday. 31st. And if you happen to listen to this particular episode, hiding from your family at a holiday event.
You're welcome.
If you're sequestered yourself away. First of all, thanks for listening. Second of all, how dare you? Thirdly, thanks for listening. We didn't do this pod as an effort to shield you from the horrors of dealing with family at the holidays, but if you utilize it that way, then what's the harm? Yeah. What's the harm? Yeah. I mean, but also say hello to your mother. He is Jeremy. I am Devin. We are Done by Law. We'll catch you next time. Thanks, bye.